Hello, and welcome to this evening's Postgraduate Criminology Interactive webinar. We're delighted to have you join us, and we're looking forward to connecting with you via the live chat function, which will be available to you throughout the webinar. My name is Caitlin. I'm one of the marketing managers at Deakin, and I'm pleased to introduce you to Reese Walters, Course Director and Professor of Criminology here at Deakin. Professor Reese Walters is the foundation and first professor in criminology at Deakin University. He has held senior academic appointments in New Zealand, Scotland, England, and Australia, where he has advised governments and developed innovative postgraduate programs in criminology, sociology, and law. Professor Walters is an internationally recognised expert in crimes against the environment, having first coined eco-crime and published groundbreaking research that examines the ways that corporations and states exploit the essentials of life, notably how those in positions of power compromise, harm, and undermine water, food, and air, the essential ingredients of human and non-human life. Professor Walters has been awarded prestigious international prizes in criminology and is widely regarded as a leader in the field. He is committed and devoted as a teacher and educator, and we're delighted to have him leading our new and exciting postgraduate criminology offerings at Deakin. So I'm very pleased to introduce you to Professor Reese Walters to speak about Deakin's innovative and unique graduate certificate and Master of Criminology degrees commencing in trimester 1, 2021. Reese will be leading this evening's webinar, and throughout the session, I'll be keeping an eye out for your questions, some of which I'll ask Reese to address at the end of the webinar. We also have in the back end a support crew behind the scenes who will do their very best to provide written responses to your questions. So please continue to send these through using the Q&A toolbar at the bottom of your screen. Welcome again and enjoy the session. Over to you, Reese.
Thank you very much, Caitlin, for that kind and very generous introduction, and welcome to everybody. Delighted to have you in attendance to hear more about our very exciting two new offerings in postgraduate criminology at Deakin and to answer your questions. Before we kick off, I'd like to formally recognise the traditional owners of the lands upon which Deakin University and its various campuses are located. I think it's important to acknowledge and recognise that these lands and their sovereignty were never ceded, but they were taken, and I expressly identify and acknowledge the Kulin and Gunditjmara peoples, their past, present and emerging elders. And I also recognise the important role that Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islanders peoples and their culture play in the life and learning of Deakin University. In the webinar, we're going to talk about the postgraduate offerings that we have developed at Deakin, notably the postgraduate diploma and the masters. We'll go through some course details, some entry requirements, some career opportunities, and then we'll finish with your questions. So I want to deliver for the first 25 or so minutes an overview of where we're at, what we're offering, and why we're so excited to be delivering it next year. As a student, it's many years ago now, but I received degrees from universities in 3 different countries, and I've now taught as an academic over the last 27 years in 5 different countries. And throughout those experiences, I can honestly say I have never been so excited about the development of this new master's and graduate diploma, graduate certificate in criminology. We have done something that has taken almost 3 years in the making. It's been very well thought through in consultation with external stakeholders, with offerings that exist as successful examples both here and abroad. And we feel that we've really developed a cutting edge program that's already receiving a significant amount of interests from students both in Australia and abroad. So what's it about? Firstly, a little bit of advice about the functionality of this evening. You'll notice that there is a Q&A button down the right-hand corner of your screen. Please use that button to submit questions. Those questions will be answered as we go through the presentation. And at the end of the presentation, I'll answer other questions. So please have them coming in as we go. postgraduate criminology at Deakin. Now, as I mentioned, I'm focusing on the graduate certificate and the masters, which are the two new offerings, but we have now extended our portfolio of offering at criminology. We have an honours degree, which has been now running for a number of years and is highly successful. It is 2 trimesters full-time, so it's a little less than 1 year of full-time study that requires an undergraduate degree, and it consists of 4 taught research and theory units and 4 units of dissertation, or a 16,000 word dissertation. So that's there as a research apprenticeship, as a pathway towards PhD that we've had and installed and taught very successfully for a number of years. The graduate certificate I'm going to go through tonight, and the masters in more detail, because we already have forums and webinars on the honours degree, and also the PhD further down the track perhaps for some of you, but also to recognise that it is another pathway, 4 years of full-time study for a dissertation under the supervision of an experienced team of an 80 to 100,000 word product. So they're the 4 things that we're now offering, and we're very delighted to do so. If you've got questions about why study at Deakin, and I think it's obviously an important question that you should be asking yourself. Some of you may already have been at Deakin and experienced what we do, how we engage, how we teach, how we support students. Others may be entering and experiencing Deakin for the very first time. Firstly, I would say that what we're going to be offering in these new 2 degrees is cutting edge, innovative criminological content. And I mean that most sincerely. It is at the forefront of the knowledge that we know about crime, criminal behaviour and criminal justice. Deakin has the largest and most diverse cohort of criminology students in Australia, and we have had the longest running criminology program degree of any university in Australia. So it's a course, a discipline that has an established pedigree, that has been involved in teaching and learning for a long time, and has been able to use different platforms and blended formulas of learning for students of diverse backgrounds and abilities, and we're very proud of that. You'll be taught by research active experts who in some instances are certainly leaders in their fields, who are publishing in areas that are receiving international audiences. So there's no teaching with students. This is all seasoned academic staff and senior industry partners who will be contributing a high level of expertise and knowledge to these degrees. Deakin has an outstanding, absolute outstanding digital infrastructure. The flexible learning environment will cater for your needs. And the resources are really second to none at Deakin, and I can attest to that, as mentioned, having taught and worked in other jurisdictions and other universities. And we have excellent employment outcomes, which we'll talk about shortly. A few other things about Deakin that we proudly profess, because we work very hard to ensure that we provide an outstanding educational experience, and hence we're ranked #1. You can look up these particular statistics and meritorious labels and awards. They're not something that we make up. They are formally recognised. We're #1 university for career service in Australia. We connect with over 60,000 students online, with the most experienced, the online digital platform for distance learning, and students obviously rank us #1 for their experience. And we take a lot of pride in that. Naturally, Deakin is achieving substantially in research and our knowledge production, and we're at the forefront of a number of disciplines, criminology being one of them, where we're producing research of very high standard. But we take great pride in our students, in working with you, in challenging you, in stimulating you, in having you achieve your goals and aspirations in a way that really works for you, in various modes of delivery and in various ways of learning across different platforms. Now, some specifics about the 2 new offerings. The graduate certificate is a half a year full-time. It's 1 trimester. So from March until June or July, it will run, or in the second half of the year. So one trimester full-time. The Masters is 1 year or 2 trimesters full-time, and we're kicking off with 2 intakes in 2021, 1st of March and the 2nd of July. Full-time or part-time, beginning of the year, mid-year, whichever you prefer, we're going to be able to deliver it. And there's a deadline for your applications. Applications are now open, and we are receiving them and processing them as quickly as we possibly can. 2021 will be online only for the Graduate Certificate of Criminology and the Master of Criminology. Online only for 2021. For 2022 and beyond, we're not yet sure, obviously, given what's happening with COVID, but we decided to make an early call for being online only for next year to ensure that we can, in fact, deliver this course to you. The graduate certificate is a level 8 qualification, similar to honours. So in Australia, the Australian qualification framework has various levels of educational attainment. Level 8 is the graduate certificate and honours, so they are similar in terms of their government standing as a qualification. Level-wise speaking, the Masters is level 9 and the PhD is the highest level of qualification attainment that you can have in Australia, and that's level 10. So as mentioned, it's 1 trimester full-time, or 4 units, 4 units or subjects. If you're not used to the unit language, that's 4 separate units that you'll be required to undertake, each unit with a requirement of 5,000 words worth of assessment. It's an advanced teaching in criminological knowledge. We are not requiring a WAM or a grade point average for our first intake. What we are doing for the graduate certificate entry is ensuring that you have an undergraduate degree. If you have an undergraduate degree that you've passed, then you are eligible for admission into the graduate certificate. It provides an independent postgraduate qualification in its own right. So if you wish to do the graduate cert because you just want to do a little bit more criminology to enhance your opportunities, then you can check out after 1 trimester and you'll have another separate university qualification. It's also a fast track pathway to Masters in criminology at Deakin. Once you complete the graduate certificate, you will have, and you complete it successfully, then you will have automatic entry into the Masters of Criminology. It's been a qualification that's had the input and the involvement of a number of relevant partners and industry stakeholders through Deakin's Criminology Advisory Board, who have people from the police, from justice, from corrections, from the Attorney Generals, from Youth Justice Board, Parole Board, the Australian Taxation Office, and the business sector. They have all been involved in having an input at some level on what we're delivering. And it provides, I think, this advanced postgraduate learning that gives you that little bit of extra, something of a competitive edge, one could say, when you're seeking opportunities in the workplace beyond that of a straight undergraduate degree. The Master of Criminology is a level 9. Again, online as mentioned only for 2021. It's 2 trimesters full-time, or 8 units. 8 units of 5,000 words of assessment per unit. And it is an advanced and higher level of both taught and research degree. You must have completed the Graduate Certificate of Criminology in order to gain entry to our Masters. However, there is another pathway, and that pathway is if you have an undergraduate degree, doesn't necessarily have to be in criminology, it can be a degree in another discipline. If you have an undergraduate degree with 2 years of relevant work experience to be assessed by myself and others upon entry, then you can accelerate straight from an undergraduate degree to the Masters of Criminology degree. It is, as mentioned, the second highest postgraduate qualification in criminology, and it's a pathway to the PhD. Again, our industry stakeholders have been involved, and it does provide you, we believe, with some excellent skills in research, in writing, in policy, and really does advance, and we're positive that it will advance significant opportunities in the marketplace for you employment-wise. We have here an array of completely new postgraduate units that have not been delivered before. They have been devised and developed from scratch. And again, you'll see by the array of content here, we are trying, and we are indeed being cutting edge. So crime and innovative justice and critical criminological theory are two cores within the graduate certificate. We're looking at ways in which we can be more creative and original, more successful in dealing with crime and criminality. So if the criminal justice system hasn't been working, why hasn't it been? What are the alternatives that we can look at? And what are some of the new innovations taking place around the world with technology, with community, with indigeneity, with a whole range of other innovations? Obviously, an advanced critical criminological theory, cutting edge, looking at Indigenous theories, looking at queer theories, green theories, theories to do with human rights, theories to do with the state, theories to do with culture and media, things that have been developed within the discipline over the course of the last 25 years. And many of our scholars are at the forefront. We're also looking at areas that we consider to be burgeoning on the horizon as the most pressing areas of not only local, national, but international concern. Where are the areas of criminological concern? And we see, well, what's emerging is we've got real issues and problems with the digital. So we're going to be focusing on that digital world, cybercrime and digital surveillance. We're going to be looking at environmental crime as climate change and changes to the environment and crimes committed against the environment, damage, compromise our environment, have significant global and national impacts. We're going to be looking at transnational criminality, transnational politics through populism, and how we're policing and the changing ways in which we're policing. Likewise, innovative topics in things to do with prisons and prisoners, global crime, things to do with terrorism, human trafficking, global crime in drug trades, how we prevent them, how do we respond to them, issues about environmental offenders and victims, and ways in which criminology can impact upon both policy and politics on a national and global scale. And public policy and criminological knowledge does that. What counts as important in criminological knowledge in policy and politics? How can we be more impactful? What do we need to do? So there's some of the new exciting units. On top of that, there are a number of electives that you can take in addition to those. Things like international financial crime, terrorism in politics, governance and fraud, technical skills you can develop if you're wanting to focus on things to do with security and safety and computer networks and using digital platforms to advance security. Challenges to democratic governments, human rights, security and strategy are alternatives depending on how you wish to build the degree in focusing on those things that are of most concern and interest to you. So again, another pictorial representation here, 4 units for the graduate certificate in criminology, and that's 8 units, not 12, 8 units for the Master of Criminology. The Master's pathway, there are 3 options. One is a coursework pathway where you will be required to take a research project, and that's a requirement of the Australian government on any Masters and Level 9 pathways. There must be a research element. If you are focusing on your learning on taught subjects, then you can take that 1 research subject and 7 other credits or units from a selection of course electives and cores. There's also a research paper option, and that is where you write a 10,000-word dissertation under supervision, and in addition to that, you take 6 core and elective subjects of taught content. And option 3 for those of you who wish to embark upon a more independent learning where you wish to write a more expansive and extended upon piece of research, you can take a 20,000 word dissertation that counts for 4 credits or 4 units, and in addition to that, a further 4 taught units. Again, 12 months full-time or thereafter the equivalent part-time, or a combination of full-time and part-time, whatever suits your learning. Again, another pictorial, the graduate certificate, 2 cores and 2 electives for 4 units, and the Master of Criminology, 4 cores and 2 electives for 8 units. We're also very proud of our work integrated learning at Deakin, and I would encourage you to explore what it is and how it works. We have excellent industry connections. We're looking at internships and also overseas opportunities. For 2021, given what's happened this year with COVID, some of our internships and overseas opportunities, you'll understand, I'm sure, are either delayed or placed on hold, but these things will be integral to the way in which we deliver and offer our graduate certificate and masters going forward. What they look like at the moment, I just can't say because of the difficult times that we're getting through right now. The entry requirements, to reiterate, the graduate certificate, a bachelor degree or higher, 2 years relevant work experience and evidence of academic capability to be judged. The Master of Criminology, as mentioned, a graduate certificate gets you straight in with a bachelor degree or a bachelor degree and no honours, no grad cert, then with the equivalent workplace experience. And again, the question you may ask is, what is 2 years of relevant workplace experience? We are looking for 2 years of industry-related experience, not the wonderful casual jobs that you've been able to have over the course of your journey, whether they be casual jobs in retail or in entertainment or in catering. We're looking for issues that are relevant to the core material of this particular subject matter. I can't be specific because they are determined on a case-by-case basis, but we certainly will welcome those contributions that you've made in the workplace to accredit that and offset that for units to be given in our degrees. There are key skills that we know from multiple employment sectors that are deemed very desirable, and these are written into all of the new units and all of the unit assessments, whether they be the soft skills around critical thinking, analysing evidence, self-management, research, oral and written communication, being able to concisely verbally present, being able to concisely write, understanding terminology, being able to juggle with time constraints, and also to having insights not only to pressures in criminal justice system, but appreciating broader perspectives on crime, which include emerging areas of global risk and social harm. So again, we've looked at the market intelligence on what employers across a number of sectors look for in terms of skill sets, and we've ensured that they are built in to your assessment and to your teaching and learning in this program. Well, the careers in criminology are becoming more and more diverse to when I first entered this discipline 35 years ago. And based on my experience as an educator, I have observed that our students are going to a whole range of places. Government industries, government departments, NGOs that focus on crime, justice, risk and regulation. Policy analysts, researchers and evaluators, enforcement and regulation officers, caseworker and counsellors, which is not on the list, but we have many students entering those fields, safety and security advisors, intelligence analysts, and a lot of now emerging roles in risk assessment, which is interesting. But then risk assessment has a lot to do with things that crime do to impact upon economies, societies, environments, and therefore people who have understandings of broader criminological issues that we will cover have a role to play in assessing how crime and the harm associated and produced by it can impact upon those very important social, economic, political, environmental structures. So we have now industry partners and career opportunities in places like justice, corrections, policing, which are some of the more traditional pathways that criminology graduates enter, but also DFAT, Foreign Affairs and Trade, the Attorney General's, Premier and Prime Minister's Office, in areas of security and community safety, youth and family services. Insurance and financial institutions are taking more interest in the skills that our students in criminology have, again, for the reasons mentioned around risk and harm minimisation. Market research, students have entered, and also people seeking to translate their understanding of transnational issues within criminology to environments such as the UN and NGOs. The application process is open. We've made it as simple and straightforward as possible. We would like you to address a personal statement about yourself, particularly if there are those employment skills that you have that you'd like us to take into consideration. Please put those down and also submit a brief CV about who you are and what you've done. So in addition to looking at qualifications that you may already have obtained, we're very much interested in you as a person and what you've achieved and what you'd like to achieve, what your aspirations and goals are. And that will be taken seriously into account when looking at your applications. We're opening up now for some questions. So many of you will have been typing in your questions along the way. Please continue to send those questions through using the various functions that we have available here. We have a wonderful team who will have been responding to your questions as we've been going through this presentation, and I'd also like to respond if there are further questions that will come in. Happy to do so.
Thanks so much, Reece. We've had one question come in from Zane. Zane would like to know what are the most common career paths for people with a postgraduate criminology qualification?
Well, that's a very good question, Zane. And I have found myself now not wanting to pigeonhole students and their aspirations. I know it's such a common thing to ask. If I take a criminology degree, where do I finish up? Now, 30 years ago, I would have said you will more than likely finish up working in a policing type organisation. You'll be working with offenders in the justice system, whether that be in non-correctional settings or in correctional settings. You'll be working in counselling and casework type roles with offenders. And that has changed dramatically. That is still very much available to you, and students with postgraduate criminology qualifications are well and truly placed to achieve those particular roles in both government and non-government sectors. But as mentioned, not everybody wants to work directly with offenders. People want to work in the policy, the research side of the criminal justice enterprise. And government and non-government sectors now have a whole host of opportunities for students who have got criminology qualifications to be engaged in researching and writing and advising about crime and criminality. And it can be not just government organisations, but market research organisations. It's interesting how developers, for example, will want to have insight into a new building that they want to put up, 50 units, for example, in a particular area. They'll go to a market research organisation and get some intel on things to do with crime. They want to sell property. They want to be able to convey to people that one of the best parts about this area is its safety. So we see students writing reports for property developers, which I never ever thought that would happen. We're seeing councils consulting with criminology graduates about making communities safer? How can we design safer communities with parks, with trees, with walkways? And you can, in fact, design crime out of communities. If you build certain communities in certain ways, they'll attract crime. If you build them in different ways, they will diminish and reduce crime. So again, things to do with architectural design with communities and local governments is something that we're doing. It's a difficult question for me to specify, and I've always been of the view that it's about creating options and opportunities for yourself in tertiary education. You take on a subject that you think you'll enjoy. If you do enjoy it, you'll do well. And if you do well, you'll have options. And I really do believe it is that simple. And I don't like to pigeonhole anybody, because I've had students who are now working with the UN, they're working with the Department of Foreign Affairs and Trade, they've got into diplomatic roles, and they're now looking at transnational drug trafficking, they're looking at transnational human trafficking. There really is a diversity of opportunity, I think, that's available, because the discipline of criminology has evolved and changed so much that it's created so much more interest for us as academics and for students, and career opportunities for you to pursue that are not just about crime, they're also about regulation, they're also about harm and harm minimisation, and they're identifying risks and dangers and how do we prevent those risks and dangers. Good question.
Great answer, Rhys. Thanks so much. We've had one other question come through now from Dominic. Dominic wants to know if there are any associations he can be a part of.
Look, that's a really good question, Dominic, and I would encourage anybody to join a number of different associations. First and foremost, there are the organisations like the Australian and New Zealand Society of Criminology, and you can go to their website and sign up for their newsletters, for their blogs, for their journals, for conference announcements. There are criminological societies in Europe, in Asia, in the UK, in the United States, in South America, that all provide those sorts of alerts and newsletters and updates on jobs, on courses, on conferences, on webinars. You can also tap into a whole host of different organisations in the non-government sector as well as the government sector that will provide you with information. It really does depend on your interest. If you're interested to know where crime is taking place right now, where you live, somewhere in Australia, then you can go to your respective Department of Justice or your Queensland Police, Victoria Police, South Australia Police, sign up to their alerts, and you can get live data on where crime's taking place and what crime's taking place in areas where you live, should that be your interest. If you want to know about environmental crimes taking place around the world, who's burning down rainforests illegally, who's illegally fishing, who's trafficking in toxic wastes, where and why. You can sign up to Europol, you can sign up to Interpol. And these sorts of things we'll be encouraging you to do throughout the course of whichever pathway that you take, to engage you with these broader knowledges and to engage you with these opportunities that will come. So you can build your networks from these sorts of organisations, activist groups, government groups, protest groups, community groups, whatever your interests may be. And what our job is to inspire you and to stimulate you in seeking out those types of groups and becoming part of them yourself. So outside of the mainstream of the Australian New Zealand Society of Criminology, which is kind of an overarching body or clearinghouse for us as an organisation of criminologists, there are multiple sources and networks that we can connect you with as your interests develop.
Thanks, Rhys. Just on the topic too of those associations, Nicola's asked, within the course and the subjects that are offered as well as the research projects, is there an opportunity to learn in line with associations outside of Deakin, such as those associations, given that the course has been created in consultation with those organisations?
There certainly, hopefully, we'll be able to have an internship of some kind or some sort of reciprocal arrangement where credit for what you do can be transposed into your degree with us at Deakin. We're still working through the detail of that, and as I've said, the progress has been slowed by this particular year. So that's likely. Whether or not you can do the two in conjunction, it just really depends upon the organisation and what they have on offer. And we certainly will be exploring and encouraging students to take those particular opportunities on board because of the diversity and the richness of experience that you'll get if you want to be engaged with a local service provider that's dealing with a particular type of offender, or with an international organisation that's preventing global trafficking in drugs or weapons and those sorts of things. So the answer to the question is, and it's a good question, thank you, Nicola, that's an evolving scenario and certainly one that we will be developing as part of our degree going forward.
Fantastic, thanks Reece. And just on the topic of the course structure itself as well, Nicola's got another question just in terms of studying part-time and the units that might be available. Are there breaks required if you're studying part-time, or are all the units available each trimester that you can choose from?
All of the units are available. Hopefully we will have more external electives. But what I've shown today, and there is a link that you'll be able to go to further explore the offerings that we have by way of units, they will all be offering and on in the T1, T2. Some of them are T1 only, some of them are T2 only, some of them are trimester 1 only and trimester 2 only, some are in both trimesters. So that will vary, but we're trying to accommodate as best we can, and I think we are accommodating it very, very well, the different modes of study that we know students will wish to pursue. So for the part-time student, I'm very confident that you will have choices and that you'll have subjects or units that you'll be able to take because they're aligned with your area of interest. We may go to trimester 3 as well over the summer school, but look, I don't want to get ahead of myself just yet. I just want to see how we go in the first year before we start expanding into a trimester 3 as well.
Great, thanks Reece. We may also have some prospective students in our audience from Deakin or from other institutions who are currently studying a Bachelor of Criminology or might have recently graduated from a course. Are there any advantages that you can talk to that you haven't already covered for pursuing further study at the postgraduate level?
I think for the Deakin students who are listening, you know the systems at Deakin, you're aware of the staff. We're recruiting new staff, which is exciting, particularly in these times, but that's just the nature of criminology at Deakin and the success that we are at Deakin. We're able to put forward a case for new senior staff and they have been approved, and that's really very, very pleasing. So there's the advantage in being familiar with the structures and with the systems. And we obviously know who you are in terms of what you've done and what you've achieved. So the processing of your applications will also be pretty straightforward as well.
Great. We have a question from Lucas as well. Is there any element of convict criminology covered in any of the subjects within the degree?
Oh, Lucas, sensational question. There is indeed, and I will be teaching that subject, critical criminological theory. Now, for students who have not taken criminology before, you will still be provided with what I call the theoretical canon of criminological theory. That will be made available to you to access, but I want to focus specifically on the emerging, the evolving, the burgeoning critical theories, particularly those theories that are looking at things to do with power, harm, violence, and justice. And they're the lenses that we want to explore a number of units in this particular degree. Convict criminology is one of the areas that I will be exploring in that critical criminological theory that I'll be teaching as one of the, well, it's been around 25 or so years, but the new ways that we look at crime and criminality from the perspective of the inmate, from the experience of the inmate, from the insights of the inmate, and what such insights can tell us about criminal behaviour, about crime and the criminal justice system. So I'm very surprised that a prospective student is exploring already convict criminology. It's a very niche area of the discipline, one that I personally find very exciting and one that I'll be delighted to teach. So thank you for that, Lucas.
Thanks, Reece. Another commonly asked question is, if I'm new to the field of criminology, what is it best that I kind of work my way through the graduate certificate and pathway into the masters that way, or would you suggest a different approach?
I'd suggest do the grad cert. Again, it's one trimester. It'll bring you up to speed on a range of issues that you will not have necessarily covered. And remember that criminology degrees are not uniform across different universities. Yes, we all do similar types of things. We look at criminological theory. We look at crime statistics. We'll look at things to do with the criminal justice system. We'll look at criminological research methods. I mean, they're kind of the core pillars. But really, the discipline is so diverse that the way in which we develop our criminology degrees is often embedded in the expertise of those who teach it. Now, we have staff at Deakin who are excellent critical criminologists. We have staff who are excellent in digital criminology, excellent scholars and experts in policing and in corrections. And that shapes the way in what we are focusing on. So there's no missing out. There's no disadvantage having not done X, Y, or Z subjects. But I think what we will do and what we are doing is building in a little bit of a fast track, if you will, for the students who've never engaged with criminology before. And we're putting a lot of effort into our online platform for you to be able to dive into some of those questions and issues. And I would absolutely recommend that people do the grad cert before they take on an entry into the masters if they've not got a criminology background for that reason. 4 units in one trimester, I think, will build your confidence and build your skills in a way where you'll enter and hit the ground running with the masters.
Thanks, Reece. We had a very similar question from Noor. So Noor has a master's in another discipline, but interested in studying criminology at the postgraduate level, and doesn't have any experience or related work experience within the industry. So I'm assuming you'd recommend that graduate certificate pathway as well for Noor's circumstances.
So. Yeah, absolutely. And thanks for the question, Noor. I think that's look. It's a good thing to do for your learning. It's not an impediment. We've tried to make it as lean and as concise and as succinct. And we've had what is a level 8 qualification approved in the 4 units that you'll take. Now, we're very proud of that achievement. It's a 1 trimester graduate certificate that's been approved because of the content and because of the assessment requirements. So that means that you can, in fact, fast track your way to a master's degree by taking that graduate certificate. So absolutely recommend that you do that to maximise your learning, and also you get another qualification.
Great, thanks, Reece. And Fallon, I think that's a very similar response for you as well, in relation to pathwaying up to your masters through the graduate certificate of criminology. Just on the topic too, Reece, of I guess course structure, and if my circumstances at the moment allow me to study only part-time, but I do decide, halfway through my degree, I'd like to transfer and study the degree at a full-time capacity. Is that possible, or must I continue on with my part-time studies throughout the whole course?
Absolutely possible, and both of these qualifications have been designed to go at the pace that you wish to set, because we're mindful and attentive to the circumstances of people's lives and how they change, and therefore we are ensuring that we can deliver the educational requirements through the grad cert or for the masters that accommodates your particular learning needs. So if you want to start off full-time, or you want to start off part-time and change the tempo, totally fine.
Great, thanks, Reese. And just one final question for you before we start to wrap up. You've mentioned in your presentation the work integrated learning opportunities and how they're very much still being worked out due to COVID. But I just wonder if you can talk to any particular units that are embedded within the course, which allow students any practical opportunities or industry connections throughout the units themselves, rather than doing additional work integrated learning experiences.
Yeah, we're looking at particularly the unit that I showed on slide to do with policy analysis and criminal justice practice. So here, whilst it's, I would say and characterise our degree as engaging with topics that are cutting edge, we'll be looking at criminological theory that's of a critical nature. We also want to equip both theoretically, research-wise and writing-wise, but also with practical policy skills, both in writing policy and analysing policy. And that's one of those particular areas that we're looking for in work integrated learning. It will have both an applied as well as a theoretical dimension to it, but it's the first one of its kind at this stage. And there may be more. Of course, you need to kind of live and learn a little bit with this. And as much as we've done, I think, an excellent job in identifying what we think students will enjoy, what we know is cutting edge, what we know is quality, it will be the students themselves at the end of the first intake who provide us with the feedback on what we need to adjust, tweak, and develop. But for now, as I say, this is the fourth Masters in Criminology degree that I've developed in a fourth different country. This is the most exciting one that I've ever been a part of, and it's a real privilege to teach it.
Fantastic. Thanks so much, Reese. Well, thank you for leading such a brilliant discussion, and thank you to our participants as well for all your fantastic questions and your attendance at this session. Our chat team have been very busy behind the scenes, but if we didn't get to answer any of your questions today, please don't hesitate to contact us. You can contact us via our phone number, which is 1800 693 888, or by emailing our friendly student advisors at myfuture@deakin.edu.au. You can also jump on our Deakin website and chat to us anytime via the live chat function. The hours are indicated in the chat function itself. Following today's webinar as well, you'll also receive a link which will have the access to the recording. So if you missed anything or want to rewatch and go through anything in more detail, that's available to you. So thank you again so much, Reese, for your time, and as well to our back-end support team and our wonderful audience. Thank you.